This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss, co-host of PBS's Motor Week. He'll take your calls and comments now at 844-885-4677 or email him at radio@goss-garage.com. And now, Pat Goss.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Goss's Garage. I'm Pat Goss. Glad to have you with us here in the Goss's Garage. And if you would like to talk about anything at all that deals with an automobile or something with an engine in it, number's 844-885-4677, and I would love to hear from you. Now, here's a question for you. Is there water in your fuel tank? Well, you bet there is. All fuel systems collect moisture, and it's not from service stations. It's from moisture in the air, which you know as humidity. So it's no surprise that hot, humid summer days are the worst offenders. Every time you remove your gas cap, air and moisture enter your tank. Also, moisture gets into fuel tanks through venting, and finally, the ethanol in today's gas pulls moisture right out of the air. So over time, one tiny drop at a time, water builds up until it damages fuel system parts or causes performance and check engine light problems. Now, fortunately, you can avoid costly water-related fuel system headaches by using dry gas once every month. Now, unfortunately, there are two types of dry gas: isopropyl and methanol. Always use isopropyl rather than methanol, because although methanol dry gas prevents the water from freezing, it does absolutely nothing, zero, to get the water out of the tank. Isopropyl, on the other hand, uses the movement of the car to mix the water and then the water to mix with the gas and be harmlessly burned in the engine. Now, use isopropyl dry gas once every month and you could save hundreds in repairs later in the life of your car. Now, that's something that you should be aware of, is that moisture, and especially if you have to buy gasoline that has ethanol in it. E10 is the most common one. Ethanol is really bad as far as pulling moisture into a fuel tank. So if you have or if you use ethanol, E10 gasoline, you should be using isopropyl alcohol at least once a month. Now, I didn't explain it all that dramatically there, but what's actually happening with isopropyl is it bonds with the water in the tank, and then it co-bonds the water and the alcohol with the gasoline, and the whole mix is drawn out of the fuel system and burned in the engine, whereby the methanol dry gas, which by the way is usually cheaper and easier to find, the methanol dry gas, all it does is combine with the water and keep the water from freezing on a cold day, but it doesn't do anything to move that, cause that water and alcohol to mix with the gasoline. So isopropyl dry gas once every month, 12 months out of the year. And in a lot of cases that can save you a fuel injector job or who knows what, fuel pump replacement and so on. All right, water in the gasoline. Keep in mind that you typically do not get water in the gasoline from the service station. I can't tell you how many times I get people calling me, emailing me, messaging me. Oh, I went to the service station, I must have got water in my gas, my car is running like crap. Well, excuse me. Interesting thing about getting water at the service station. If that does happen, remember that water is heavier than gas. So, in order to pick up water from a service station, you have to have enough water in the bottom of the underground tank so that the pump that pumps it over to the dispenser that you use, that pump is submerged in water. All right, that can happen. And guess what happens? It doesn't pump a little bit of water, it pumps pure water. Now you're over there, you're putting gas in your tank, or you think it's gas. Instead, you're putting water in your tank. Now, this business that, oh, well, it's got water in it, it runs like garbage and so on. Newsflash, it doesn't run. You get water from the service station, you got a tank full of water, and any gas that was in there is floating on top of the water. So, your pickup tube for the gasoline is down at the bottom of the tank. It never moves. Now, that pickup tube is submerged in water. You start the car, it may run 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 seconds, and then it shuts down. It does not start again. So this business of getting this teeny little bit of water that's going to affect the way it runs, it affects the way it won't run because you get a lot of water if you get water at a service station. So I don't know where a lot of these tales come from, but, you know, a lot of them just don't make sense. And speaking of service stations, reading an article the other day where somebody who knows nothing about cars, nothing about service stations, thinks they know something they don't. So they're writing this ad, or this article, and they're telling you how to save money, to get a better value on your gas. And they tell you to go buy your gas first thing in the morning because the gas is going to be colder from sitting overnight. And that gas is going to be more dense, so you're going to get more energy per dollar. Excuse me? Where do these idiots get their ideas? All right, number one, gasoline is stored in huge tanks underground. Underground, where the ambient temperature is about 52 degrees. Now, the ground doesn't change that much overnight, especially when you're down 10 or 12 feet or so. Doesn't change that much overnight. And even if it did, you've got typically at least 4,000 gallons of gasoline, and it takes days for that gasoline to change temperature. It doesn't take hours for it to change. Come on, folks. Doesn't make any difference what time of day you buy your gas. The gas that's going into your car probably going to be pretty much the same temperature no matter what time of day it is. So, you know, that makes no sense. The other thing is that they say don't fill up while the tanker is dropping gas. Yeah, I suppose, but what's going on there? Well, they would have you believe that this is going to stir up a lot of garbage in the bottoms of the storage tanks. But even if it did, there are filters and strainers and so on the pickup down inside the storage tank. Then there are filters inside the dispenser. So the chances of you're getting a lot of crud in your fuel tank from a service station these days is pretty darn slim. So anyway, some things you should be aware of. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back here on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Lots of rainy weather can lead to car air conditioner mold problems. Now, if your basement is damp, it won't be long before you start seeing mold. And although mold is common in car air conditioners, just like in your basement, it has to be removed. You see, damp air conditioners, like damp basements, provide a wonderfully inviting place for mold to thrive. If you had a moldy basement, you wouldn't ignore it, yet nearly everyone ignores mold in their cars. But in a car, you're up close and personal with it, and nearly every breath you take in a moldy car has passed over the nasty stuff. A sure sign of mold growing inside your car's air conditioner is a foul smell when the AC first starts blowing. There are products to spray into the air conditioner that deal with odor, but most do not get rid of the mold. Why worry? Well, mold reduces AC performance, but more important, the air you breathe in the car is moving over nasty, moldy stuff that can cause respiratory and allergic problems. So if you're experiencing unusual allergy symptoms or eye irritation, you may have a mold-contaminated car air conditioner. The fix requires a commercial-strength product like BG FrigiClean, professionally injected directly into the vehicle's AC ducts to kill, then remove the mold and make the system clean and fresh. Life changes at a ferocious pace these days, especially when it comes to maintaining our cars. For example, automatic transmissions now need regular fluid flushes. Transmission fluid breaks down with use, and although it may look fine, its additives wear out and it can no longer properly protect bands, clutches, seals, and other hugely expensive parts inside your transmission. Bottom line, more wear and a shorter transmission life. Now you can significantly extend transmission life with a BG transmission flush every 24 to 30,000 miles or 2 years. BG makes the best transmission flush machine I've ever tested. It renews all of the fluid in your transmission, not just a small part of it. The BG transmission flush machine is safe too, because it uses the natural circulation of the transmission. Your transmission will work better and last longer. As with everything BG offers, this is a superior service. For more information, go to bgprod.com or bgfindashop.com.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677.
For those of you enjoying Goss's Garage on TuneIn.com, please note our new showtime every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. So keep that in mind. Also, we will replay today's show at 1, the old time, so that you can listen to it at that time if you prefer. Now, Michael says, I own a 2007 Subaru Legacy with an automatic transmission, and when I disconnect and then reconnect the battery, it takes a good 2 or 3 tries to start the engine. All engine starts after that are quick and without hesitation. This only happens when I disconnect and then reconnect the battery while working on the car. Also, after a cold start and then shift into drive, the idle drops really low, about 300 to 400 RPM for a second. It nearly stalls, but then recovers. While the engine is hot, this doesn't happen. Is this a symptom of a dirty throttle body? And the computer is compensating the best it can for that buildup on the throttle plate? If you think it's a dirty throttle body, do you have any tips for cleaning an electronic throttle body? I've read you have to be really careful when cleaning the plates, or you may have problems with the calibration and thus the idle issues. Thank you for your time and knowledge, Michael. All right, Michael, number one, as far as the starting after you disconnect the battery cable, yeah, we see that. We see it on a lot of cars and a lot of times, because what you have done is when you disconnect the battery, and I'm not sure why you'd be disconnecting the battery enough times that this would be an issue, but for whatever reason, you're doing that. And when you disconnect the battery, you erase all of the volatile memory in the computer. So there are some things that it has to relearn, and sometimes those things will affect the way the car starts the first time. See, it has to take some readings on the crankshaft position sensor and the cam sensor and so on, so that the computer knows that all of these things are right where they should be. After that, it already knows, it's already taken its references, and no issue. So, not something I would worry about. All right, now as far as cleaning the throttle plates and this dip in idle when the engine is cold when you put it in gear, probably dirty throttle plate, or it could be dirty idle air control. But fact of the matter is that you want to start by examining the throttle plate. Remember that a lot of dirt in a throttle body often looks like somebody may have painted a little bit of color onto the inside of the throttle body. It isn't much. It isn't much at all. So, what do you do? Well, in order to clean a throttle body, first you have to have the right chemicals. And how do you know what are the right chemicals? Well, you go to your service manual, and the service manual will tell you. Now, normally when we're dealing with an electronic throttle body, because off to the side of the throttle plate is an electric motor and a bunch of other electronic parts, we do not spray the chemical into the throttle body, because it can go past the shaft and into some of those electronics, and then you have big issues. All right, what do? We use a rag, in most cases a shop towel, with cleaner sprayed onto it. Then we use a small thin screwdriver, and we open the throttle plate following the directions in the service manual. So to do most anything on a car these days, you need a service manual, not an owner's manual. But we follow the directions, and many times it'll tell you to hook up a scan tool and use the scan tool to activate the throttle plate. Now, of course, you could, in most cars, you could turn on the ignition and have somebody sit in the car, depress the accelerator to open the throttle plate. That works. But one thing you don't do is just pry it open, because that can damage the gears and all kinds of things that control it. So, we use whatever is the most practical way to open the throttle plate. Either somebody sitting in the car with the ignition on but the engine not running, or using a scan tool to command it to open up. And then we take this rag soaked with chemical on the end of a screwdriver and work it back and forth inside the throttle body to get rid of any buildup. So that's how we do it. But again, most of these things these days, you should have a service manual. Something like All Data or Mitchell or something like that, where it tells you how to go about doing these things. in such a manner that you don't damage something. Because it's not like in the old days where everything was all mechanical. You've got electronics, you've got sensors, you've got these little plastic gears and all kinds of stuff that you can screw up these days, you know, and it doesn't care, you know, if you screw up, you know, kill the throttle body, probably several $100s, so certainly not something you want to do. All right, so that's the way we go about doing that. Now this is from Joel. I have a 2012 Toyota Corolla. I looked at the front brake pads. The pad on the piston side is worn down, not down to nothing, but worn, and the other pad is barely worn. Is this normal, or is the front pad not sliding? About 46,000 miles on original pads and rotors. Thanks, Joel. All right, I can only guess that you do not routinely service your brakes, because what this is telling you, because the outside pad is not wearing, this is telling you that the caliper is not sliding. You see, the piston pushes against the inner pad, and the reaction to that is the caliper slides and applies pressure to the outer pad. All right, so obviously your caliper is not sliding, and that would be covered in normal brake maintenance, which is a brake check and a brake service once a year or every 12,000 miles. And part of what brake service is to lubricate the caliper so that it slides freely. So you should be able to take a brake caliper and move it back and forth with your fingers. Real easy. Compress the piston in the caliper and it just slides back and forth. Now, what a technician is going to do on a brake service is they're going to clean the areas where the caliper slides, and then apply a special high temperature synthetic brake lube. And it is brake lube, it's not just synthetic grease, because grease attracts dirt. Dirt can cause the caliper to bind, just like yours is doing now. So the brake lube is designed so that it does not attract dirt. So, you know, it helps keep things clean. So I suspect what you need is to have your brakes serviced and make sure that the calipers are sliding freely. All right, folks, we are going to take a break. This portion of Goss's Garage is brought to you by BG Products. We'll be right back.
Operators are standing by to take your call for Pat at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
When buying a car, most drivers look for more power, but they rarely consider two even more important performance factors. Just buying horsepower doesn't guarantee a great feeling or great performing car. More important are power to weight ratio and torque. Power to weight ratio has a huge effect on how a car performs. The more power you have relative to the weight of the vehicle, the better it will perform. High-performance cars are usually very light with big engines, so they have a high power-to-weight ratio. A high-performance engine in a lightweight sports car makes it go like stink, but put the same engine into a giant 18-wheeler, and it would be lucky to even move the big beast. Turn that around and put the semi-engine in the sports car, and it would literally tear the car apart. So, there are limits to all of this. Within the class of car you're looking at, you want a high power to weight ratio, not just high horsepower. In some cases, a better power to weight ratio will also mean better fuel economy because the engine doesn't have to work as hard to move the car. Also consider torque, which is the twisting force needed to get the car moving. More torque makes the car feel better during acceleration. Also, the lower the RPM where the highest torque number occurs, the stronger the car will feel. Just thought you might like to know. I get lots of questions about BG products, many about specific products or services like, is BG44K really that good, or are BG transmission, cooling system, and power steering flushes actually necessary? But most popular of all, do I use BG products in my cars? Well, the answer to all of those questions is yes. A regular schedule of BG flushes and chemicals will deliver the longest possible life from all the lubricated and fuel delivery parts on your vehicles. And do I use BG products? You bet I do. I drive nice cars, and I drive a lot. Plus, my live radio and TV shows mean that my cars have to be absolutely reliable. A no start from dirty fuel injectors or a failed transmission just isn't acceptable in my life. Remember, deposits and dirty fluids ruin expensive parts. For reliability like I demand, visit one of the quality shops that sell BG products and perform BG services. To find a BG professional near you, bgfindashop.com.
Now, back to Goss's Garage with your host, Pat Goss.
Hey folks, please subscribe to Goss's Garage on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, and for more car tips, tricks, and money-saving ideas, visit goss-garage.com. All right, let's talk to John from Alexandria with a BMW 7 Series. John, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Thank you, Pat. An oil viscosity question. Used, it's 70,000 miles on it. I change oil at 5,000 miles. It's been dealer serviced. The oil has, up to now, 5W30. Recent oil change, the dealer went to 0W30. My question is that the wave of the future, or should I specify 5W30?
Well, as long as 030 is on the acceptable list from BMW, that would be my choice, simply because most of the wear on an engine occurs during and immediately after startup. Estimated that probably 90% of all the wear that occurs on an engine happens in those few seconds. Now, the thinner the oil, when it's cold, in this case 0 will circulate through the engine and give protection, in many cases, 700 times faster than the 5-weight. So you get protection to all of these parts almost immediately. And of course the 30 weight, that's what the oil acts like when it's warmed up. So, you know, there's no difference there. So yeah, I'm a big fan of 0-weight oils.
All right, Pat, I'll specify that then. Thank you.
Okay. Just make sure that it's on the acceptable list from BMW.
Well, I would assume the BMW dealership would use acceptable BMW oil.
You know what they say about assume?
I hear you. I'll ask that question.
Don't assume that, because lots of times things happen because there's a special price or a bigger markup or all kinds of things. I get complaints from people across the country that they went to a dealer, the dealer put in something that wasn't recommended by the manufacturer. Now later they have a problem. Then the manufacturer says, hey, your warranty is void. You used the wrong oil. But the dealer put it in, you say. Well, that's your problem. That's between you and the dealer. So these things get to be really sticky.
I'll interrogate him at the next oil change.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, you know, just assuming that what a dealer does is always in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendation, well, no, it really isn't necessarily that way. So keep that in mind. Now, one of the things that I recommend that people do, if you want to get good service, take your owner's manual, make copies of the pages where it tells you the services that need to be done and the products that need to be used. Now, that'll give you the time or mileage, not necessarily the best one, but the one that you should never exceed. Remember that a lot of these recommendations in an owner's manual are not the best. What they're really saying is do not exceed this time in months or years or this mileage. They're not guaranteeing that an oil or a coolant or something like that is going to last that long, so you should be checking it in between and so on. What they're saying is don't ever go beyond this. So, you know, keep that in mind. Now, the business with making copies, make a copy. It's going to be small, so put it on your copier, blow it up so that you got a full page, and then make copies of that. And whenever you take your car in for service, check off the things that you want on one of those sheets. Now, you got a whole bunch of them. Check off the things that you want. Then hand that to the service writer. Here's what I want. Here is what I want you to use. This is what the manufacturer recommends. Whether you're in an independent shop or a dealership, here's what the manufacturer says should be used. Here's what I want you to do, and hand them that piece of paper. Now, there can't be any confusion at that point as far as what you want, because most times you're going to be telling the service advisor, you're going to say, well, I want an oil change. And I think my manual says it takes 0.30. Okay. Well, now the service advisor sits there and writes all of this down, puts it into the computer and so on. And even a typo from 0.30 to 5.30 or from 0.30 to 0.40 or something like that. It happens. People make mistakes. So, you hand them the sheet of paper. That sheet of paper has what you want and what you want them to use. And that, of course, protects you in the case that they do something that is not what you wanted or something that contradicts what the manufacturer recommends. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back here on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
This is the story of two cheap caps on your car that can cause big problems. Radiator caps and gas caps. Both should be replaced every couple years. Now, that may seem extreme, but a failed radiator cap can let air leak into the cooling system, which causes the car to overheat. Air can also cause serious cooling system rust buildup. But don't think of it as just rust. Think of it as what it really is: dissolved engine. It's that simple. Rust is the remnants of dissolved metal parts inside the engine that have mixed with the coolant. An $8 radiator cap could save you hundreds or even thousands over time. Another cap that has acquired star status is the gas cap. In the past, gas caps normally lasted the life of the car. The only time anyone bought a new one was when they drove off with the cap laying on the car's roof or the gas pump. But today, gas caps provide an airtight seal to prevent gas fumes from leaking out of the tank. Gas fumes add significantly to air pollution, so the government mandated that gas caps had to keep fumes in the car. When your gas cap gets tired, it allows fumes to leak, and on comes the dreaded check engine light. So, before buying expensive check engine light testing, always test the gas cap, or it may be easier just to replace it. Cheap and simple solutions to what are often costly problems.
Life changes at a ferocious pace these days, especially when it comes to maintaining our cars. For example, automatic transmissions now need regular fluid flushes. Transmission fluid breaks down with use, and although it may look fine, its additives wear out and it can no longer properly protect bands, clutches, seals, and other hugely expensive parts inside your transmission. Bottom line, more wear and a shorter transmission life. Now you can significantly extend transmission life with a BG transmission flush every 24 to 30,000 miles or 2 years. BG makes the best transmission flush machine I've ever tested. It renews all of the fluid in your transmission, not just a small part of it. The BG transmission flush machine is safe too, because it uses the natural circulation of the transmission. Your transmission will work better and last longer. As with everything BG offers, this is a superior service. For more information, go to bgprod.com or bgfindashop.com.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
For those enjoying Goss's Garage on tunein.com, please note our new show time every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. All right, keep that in mind, and we will repeat today's show at 1 p.m. if that is your time of choice. All right, now John had an interesting question dealing with oil viscosity. Viscosity is the thickness or pourability of an oil or any other product for that matter that's a liquid. So viscosity, we're talking about 0W30. Now the higher the numbers, the thicker the oil at operating temperature. The lower the number, the thinner the oil. Now I already mentioned that the zero weight oil circulates through the engine a lot faster, and that gives you a whole lot of protection. But what are we really talking about on a multi-viscosity oil? Well, you see, oils, they have a base stock, and this base stock is typically going to be, in this case, a zero weight oil. But that zero weight, although it'll circulate through the engine really quickly, give good protection when the engine is cold, may not give the protection that's needed when the engine is hot. So how do they convert it from zero weight to 30 weight? Well, that is done with viscosity index improvers. These are polymers and different things that they put into the oil. And if you think about it, some of them are a rubber-based product that is made in such a way that when the oil is cold, these microscopic particles just collapse and squeeze together, and they form these tight little balls. Then as the oil warms up, these things expand like the wings of a butterfly, and that takes up more space and it slows down the movement of the oil. And because of that characteristic, the oil reacts like a 30-weight oil in the way it moves through the engine. So viscosity index improvers, usually polymers, are used to do that. All right, other things about oil. If you look on an oil container, you'll see things relative to SAE. SAE is the Society of Automotive Engineers, and they set standards for viscosity and so on, so that this is certified by SAE that, or I don't know that SAE certifies it, but the oil manufacturer certifies that their product meets the standard for, say, 0W, and by the way, W is for winter or cold. They set the standard of what that oil should do, how it should react, and so on. Then the oil company builds the oil to match that standard. And, they certify that it meets those specifications. Society of Automotive Engineers, SAE. The last part of it is API, the American Petroleum Institute. Now, the API, they set the standards for quality. See, there are different qualities of oil: good, better, best, super better, super best, whatever. And that is shown with a two-letter symbol like SL, SJ, SM, SN, or CH4, and so on. These are the quality standards. Now, if you look in your owner's manual, you'll find that it will tell you that you need to use oil blankety blank as far as viscosity is concerned. And one of the more popular ones these days is either 0W20 or 5W20. Now, those oils are available in different standards, different qualities. So your owner's manual will then tell you, number one, what the viscosity should be, number two, what the quality level should be, like SL, SM, SN, and you have to buy the oil that meets both the viscosity recommendation and the quality recommendation. So if you don't, you can void your engine's warranty. And if you have an oil-related problem, can they test? You bet they can test. No problem there. Do they test? Most times they do. And if you've got the wrong oil and they can prove that that oil, because you used the wrong oil, it caused the failure inside your engine, you are in deep stuff, my friend. So you're looking at both the SAE viscosity and the API quality ratings on the oil that you put in your car. And both have to meet the specifications in your owner's manual. All right, another break. We'll be right back on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
You probably don't think about it, but if you double the life of your car, your fixed expenses per mile will drop 50%. But how can you double the life of a car? Well, that's easy. Simply use BG products and flushes for your routine maintenance. I'll bet you know someone whose cars last a lot longer than yours, plus they never seem to have problems. Now you can enjoy those great savings too. Simply enroll in the BG Protection Plan, and BG will guarantee covered parts for as long as you own your car, in writing. With the BG Protection Plan, long after your car is paid off, you'll still have years of warranty left. Think about it. No payments and no worries about major repair bills. That's amazing. It's almost too good to be true because the BG Protection Plan is also absolutely free. My cars are covered by the BG Protection Plan. Yours should be too. For details, bgprod.com or 800-327-8883. Don't fall victim to "it looks good, therefore it must be good." Like when thump bump you're tapped by another car at a traffic light or in a parking lot. You get out and look, and being a good person, yeah, right. You just don't want the hassle of calling the cops and your insurance company. Plus, you don't even see a scratch, so you let it go. That could be a minor to deadly mistake. What you see is purely cosmetic, but hidden behind the cosmetics are safety systems. Those hidden parts absorb and dissipate energy, and they may have been damaged in that tiny bump. The problem is that unless you have energy absorbers and crumple zones checked, they may not protect you if your car is hit again in the same spot. Most safety parts are one-time use, and that first minor bump may have used up a portion of their effectiveness. Then, in an actual accident, they're only partially effective. For instance, the energy absorber may transmit more of the crash energy into the car and the people in the car. That could mean the difference between no or minor injuries or something worse, especially for young or elderly passengers. Even in bumps that seem like a total non-issue, take a minute to exchange information, then have the safety parts behind the bumper checked. It might save a life.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
Hey folks, please subscribe to Goss's Garage on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, and for more car tips, tricks, and money-saving ideas, visit goss-garage.com. All right, Ken from Laurel, Maryland, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Right. Morning, Pat. While you were talking about gasolines, the top-tier gasolines, is it necessary to buy a top-tier gasoline, or is that also a myth?
Well, no. Top-tier gasoline is better than regular gasoline because it has more additives. The thing of it is if they charge more money for it, how much do you have to pay? And if you have to pay 10 or 15 cents a gallon, it really isn't worth it, because you'd be better off buying a commercial grade fuel system cleaner like BG44K, because over the long haul it's going to save you more money.
Right. You think that the off-brand gasolines are okay to use, provided they sell a lot of gas?
Oh, yeah. There's a federal standard for the minimum amount of detergent and all these different chemicals that go into gasolines. And the big thing is that you don't buy from a mom and pop station where, you know, they sell 2 gallons a week or something. The gas might be stale. Excuse me. But all of these off-brand stations where they sell a lot of gas, the gas is going to be fresh, and should be no issue at all. Actually, if you go to one of these tank farms, you'll see all kinds of brands of tankers pulling up, and they'll fill from the same dispenser at the tank farm, and then they add their own additive package, and it's just the additive package that's different.
Right. The speaking of the fuels, longevity of fuels, is it true that the high-test gasoline will actually last longer before it goes stale?
I've heard that. I have never been able to prove it or disprove it. I don't know how people come up with that. I've never seen any kind of laboratory testing or anything. And, you know, my garage may be more damp than your garage, or any of 1,000 different factors that could affect the longevity of gas. So, you know, other than short of a laboratory setting, I don't know how you'd even prove it.
Right. There's a lot of things about gasoline you really can't prove, like if they're really adding the additives into the gas after they fill up the gas station.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no way of knowing these things. I guess they expect us to have blind faith in things, but, you know, whatever you have going on, someplace, somewhere, there will be someone who will figure out a way to scam the system.
Right. Just like the alcohol percentage content of the gasoline, you have no way of knowing if you're actually getting 10% or less.
Right. Be nice if we got less, but, you know, because you get better fuel economy without the alcohol and you don't have the moisture problems. And yes, I understand the necessity for the environmental concerns, but, you know, where is the balance when you look at the millions of extra gallons of fuel used every day because of the lesser efficiency of the alcohol? You know, are we actually saving anything there as far as the environment is concerned, because we're using a lot more gallons, but we're producing less emissions per gallon? I don't know. I don't know how that balances out.
The other thing, Pat, if you had a car that would take E85 gasoline, would you actually run it on that, or you would skip it?
I would skip it unless there was some special promotion where you could get a good price on it, because some people are paying more money for it and you're getting 20 to 30% less fuel economy, so it's really not a great value.
Right. Well, it's hard to find in this area, too.
Yeah, some parts of the country, it's everywhere. It's on every other corner, but around here, I only know of a handful of stations that that actually sell it, and they don't seem to sell very much of it. So, you know, it's not a hot commodity here.
Right, plus you have the problem, you don't know if it's fresh if they don't sell much of it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
All right, that's good answers to the questions for today. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Ken, thank you. Really appreciate it. Yeah, there's so much to gasoline. We take it for granted that we put the nozzle in the tank, we pump this juice into the car, everything is going to be golden. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We have no idea that we're getting the quality that we expect, that everything is up to standard, because certainly there isn't anybody going around checking every tanker full of fuel that gets delivered to a service station or anything. You know, that would take half the population of the country, for crying out loud. And I don't think most of you, myself included, have much interest in going around checking the consistency of the fuel in tanker trucks. Well, somebody has to do it sometimes, I guess. Anyway, you know, buy gasoline from a high volume station. The low volume stations, it may be stale. So high volume station, use the octane required by the manufacturer. Remember that there is a difference between required and recommended. We still get questions about that. My car recommends premium fuel. Okay, normally that is followed by, for best performance, either followed by or preceded by. For best performance, we recommend premium fuel, minimum octane 91. So, you know, that is a recommendation. That is not a requirement. Some cars say premium fuel required, not for best performance, not for anything like that. Premium fuel required in order to maintain your warranty and everything. Required, you should, in most cases, use premium fuel. Premium fuel recommended normally means that you can use 87, but you may lose a fraction of a second in your 0 to 60 time. Like, who cares unless you're going to the drag strip? Now, in day-to-day driving, you know, a tenth of a second from 0 to 60, what does it matter? All it means is that you get to the person's taillights ahead of you a tenth of a second quicker in traffic. Means absolutely nothing. So, you know, these things are, you know, lots of times don't make a whole lot of sense, and especially the things that people do to, you know, they think they're doing something for their car. People like to think that, oh, I'm going to put premium in my car and that's going to clean things up. I'm going to do that periodically. That's hogwash. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way at all. So, you know, don't think that putting premium into a regular fuel car is a treat for the car, because it is not. And actually may lead to more deposits, not a cleaner engine. Folks, we have completed Goss's Garage one more time. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Steve McMillan and George Stockton for producing today's show. For everyone here at Goss's Garage, I'm Pat Goss. Until next time, hey, please everybody, drive gently. See ya.